Fellas, listen, we're long overdue for this video. This game's been out for a while now, but I want to take the time to talk about Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed, which is the DLC expansion game for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 that released at the end of its DLC waves. Similar to how Torna released for Xenoblade 2, this is what released for Xenoblade 3. And it's the final game for the overarching story of Xenoblade, so it's a pretty big deal. I think it's safe to say that Xenoblade 3 as a base game was fantastic. I made a whole animation about my fun little adventure going through that game. I think they expanded and improved a lot of things from the previous iterations, but it did have some room for improvement, as many games do. And Future Redeemed is what I would describe as not only a game that addresses the issues of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, but remedies them, and is also a Xenoblade fan's wet dream. Let me explain. You get to play as the previous protagonists of the other mainline titles. There's a bunch of references and callbacks for those games throughout Future Redeemed. You can also play as Fei Fong Wong from Xenogears, who is full of beans, also known as Matthew. The Collectopedia is back better than ever. Exploration's really good. There's incredible environments, music, a story that is good standalone, but also deepens the story of Xenoblade 3 itself. And it's paced beautifully. By the time you get to the end, you really feel like, you know, fulfilled and satisfied, and it didn't feel like there was too much filler or anything like that. Basically, I'm saying this game is peak for a lot of reasons, and I want to discuss the finer details of why that is, on top of going over some really interesting pieces of dialogue that is dropped within the game that I think is incredibly significant, and might give a hint on where Xenoblade is going from now, because, again, Future Redeemed is the official end of the Klaus's chronicle within Xenoblade. So what's going on now? Now that we've gone through all these games, are we done? Is it over? Lots of exciting stuff to go through. Let's start with why this game is so good. I mean, after all, it's just a DLC game. Did they really have to go this hard? I mean, Torna was incredible, but Future Redeemed doesn't have to deal with any community roadblocks to progress the story, so that's a big plus. Right off the bat, the game has an incredible cast. You have Matthew, who is surprisingly likable, and honestly a breath of fresh air compared to the other protagonists we've been through in Xenoblade. Great accent. Of course, we get a grown-up Shulk who's no longer feeling it, but still wonderful nevertheless. And probably the most beloved character from this game, Giga Chad Rex. Probably one of the most insane glow-ups in gaming history. He's just goated. Like, just look at this dude. On top of that, we have their children and a computer. Something Future Redeemed did really well is reward exploring the areas they crafted for the game. Monolith Soft are gods at creating environments that both look incredible and are fun to explore. And this time around, they tie the progression with the actual exploration. So picking up containers, chests, and unlocking secret areas just feel good to do. They brought back the Collectopedia in a much better way than in Xenoblade 3, in my opinion. It's a lot more like the Collectopedia in Xenoblade 1 or Xenoblade X. You just pick stuff up, try to find rare ones, complete the book, and get rewards. Simple and fun. Not only are the environments beautiful to look at and fun to explore, the music accompanying these areas are godlike, to no one's surprise. Everyone and their grandmothers has heard and vibed to some Xenoblade music, whether or not they played the games for a reason. It was a lot of fun to see Colony 9 again with a little nice remixed track. I found the enemies and unique monsters fun to fight as always, but nothing will compare to seeing Rotbart Jr. in this game. We went through all of Xenoblade 3 and its DLC waves with no sign of Rotbart or a Rotbart adjacent creature, which was unprecedented. But then this game gave us this gift, which is something I'm very grateful for. Heart-to-hearts are kind of back, essentially just scenes with certain party members talking and usually having a deep moment or talking about the environment around them. It's always nice to learn more about the world and characters with these moments. Lastly, a great addition to the game was just a faster paced combat system. It was still something similar to Xenoblade 3, but the lack of transforming and instead using unity combos definitely quickened things up and made everything feel satisfying. I really like the combat at both Xenoblade 3 and Future Redeemed, but there's one problem that remained for me in this, and that's the chain attacks. I do not like them. I don't think they're interesting enough to stimulate the brain as a turn-based segment, and they take far too much time, especially since how important they are for dealing damage in these games. Like, it's your finisher usually, and there's just so many animations and phases and turns, and personally, I always feel like it slows the combat down, which sucks because the combat without it feels so nice when Rex isn't face-tanking the floor from stealing all the aggro. But that's a separate issue. That being said, overall, they did so much right when it came to this game in so many facets that I can definitely overlook this gripe. And one of the things they did really well is the story of Future Redeemed. Now, if you haven't played the game or the series, I will warn you, there will be some spoilers ahead, because I want to talk about the end and one of the crazy moments that happened around that time, because quite frankly, it's fucking insane. It is fucking insane. In terms of the story overall relating to Xenoblade 3, I really like how it adds more depth to the struggle N goes through. He really is a tragic character. He doesn't even mean to kill Matthew's Gramps, who is his own son. I found it sad how Rex and Shulk are trying to guide their children who don't know they are their parents because they're in the cycle, but they still try their best to keep them on the right path. Very touching. One of those instances is us having to beat the shit out of them to prove the kids are strong enough, which was a fun sequence. I think Shulk was named like Godslayer Shulk or something. It was just a badass boss title. Like, it doesn't get better than that. I mean, who could beat Immovable Gonzalez? But, you know, it is what it is. The final boss fight was really cool, which I'm glad, because I loathe the Z boss fight from Xenoblade 3, man. Unskippable cutscenes, the fight is long as hell, and if you die, you restart it completely, and it's 90% chain attacks. It's everything I could possibly despise, and for some reason, it's the climax of the game. For Future Redeemed, we get a fucking badass creature to fight. He looks like Deus from Xenogears, which is an instant plus for me. And in regards to Xenogears, this leads me to talk about the craziest moment in this entire game. And it is the scene when they're transported in what looks like the real world by Alvis. And while Niall is talking about stuff with our cast, the true juice is coming from the radio nearby with the Vector logo on it. If you guys don't know what Vector is, it's a big company in the Xenosaga series, which has been around since their Earth existed, which is now referred to as Old Jerusalem. This is not the first time we've seen this in Xenoblade, actually. Cosmos, a big character from Xenosaga, and also the rarest blade you can pull in Xenoblade 2. When you pull her, the Vector logo is on her pod. Anyways, seeing a logo is cool and all, but basically throughout the entirety of this scene, this voice is talking and connecting the Xenoblade series with Xenogears, Xenosaga, and also Xenoblade X. Real connections being made with the plot. I mean, some people see it as more of like an Easter egg kind of thing, maybe not as concrete, and that's valid. For me, the biggest drop was them saying the main villain up to no good is Dimitri Yuria, which is such a big character from the Xenosaga series. So this whole section feels like it's a fan-written segment of a Xeno superfan, but instead it's just Takahashi cooking and feeding his old school fans something delicious to chew on. Now, I've only recently played all the older Xeno games. Some of you may remember that in order for me to prepare for Xenoblade 3 a while back, I 100%ed Xenoblade 1, 2, I beat Xenoblade X, and I played and beat Xenogears for the first time, along with Xenosaga 1, 2, and 3, along with all the supplementary content in between. Now, initially, I was hoping Xenoblade 3 would have some callbacks to the older Xeno games, because I ended up liking them a lot. Honestly, I'd say even more so than the Xenoblade series. Seriously though, those games are so good. Even the jank older Xenosaga games have an incredible story, world building, and music, so they're definitely worth playing. If you guys have the time and an emulator, play Xenogears and Saga, okay? If you enjoy Xenoblade Chronicles, or the way that Takahashi's brain works, I promise it'll be worth it. I was apprehensive at first when I started, and they ended up being some of my favorite JRPGs of all time. So yeah, consider it. So again, once I beat Xenoblade 3, I was disappointed in seeing the game didn't really have any callbacks to the older Xeno games. So when they hit us with this juiciness in Future Redeemed, needless to say, I was really happy. But my favorite moment ties everything together, and it's the final moments of Future Redeemed. After a wonderful credit sequence, which is sang by Joanne Hogg, which, by the way, sang the ending themes to Xenogears and Xenosaga 1, we see a blue light. A lot of people argue on what this is, but to me, it's unquestionably Cosmos. And if you know the scene that this is referencing from Xenosaga 3, I think it's a lot more apparent. There's so many nods to Xenosaga and Future Redeemed, and modern Monolith Soft seems to be hella tight with Bandai Namco, so it being Cosmos makes the most sense to me. So how significant is this blue stream of light? I think tying the Xenoblade series together with the Saga series would be really cool. Some things here and there would have to be retconned, sure, but understandable considering the change of publishers. And I know at this point I'm treading into the theory crafting and lore territory, which admittedly I'm not the guy for. I'm definitely not an expert when it comes to that stuff, but it's still really fun to think about. And I think since this is the end of the Klaus saga, maybe we see a future with Xenoblade that either continues things set up from the Xenosaga series, or maybe we can see some sort of remake done by Monolith Soft. That one seems a little bit more of a pipe dream, but I personally would freak out. At the end of the day, the Klaus Chronicles are over, and Xenoblade is entering a new chapter. And Future Redeemed was the perfect send-off. It was peak for so many reasons. I was very happy with this game. I really hope we get more Xenosaga out of this somehow. I am curious to hear what you guys think about this. I'm well aware the vast majority of people who've played Xenoblade haven't really played Xenosaga and Gears. So I understand maybe not everyone is as hyped as me on that prospect. And the only thing I can say to that is go play the games. You won't regret it. Or maybe watch someone who played it. You know, that works too. Anyways. It was fun to come back and talk about this game with you guys. Again, let me know what you thought about Future Redeemed. I'm really not sure when the next Xenoblade game will be announced or released. Will it be the remake of an older game, older series? Will it be a spin-off game? Maybe a new thing entirely? I don't know. But I'll be waiting. But yeah, just wanted to talk about that. I'll see you next time there's something interesting to talk about. So see you later, Fly Crew. Bye-bye. Back to my dungeon now. All right, yeah, no, it goes lower. There's more.